Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the RDA Central West Business Leaders Breakfast, and I'm really excited that you're able to join us today. In the hot seat, we have Tamara James, the founder and workforce specialist at Pulse HR. Tamara, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me.
No, fantastic to have you here this morning, and I'm really excited because I think today we're going to touch on some fantastic topics that are going to provide some real support and some insights, I guess, not only into your journey into the Central West and Pulse HR, but also provide some great insights for local businesses. So, as I said, Tamara, you're well known as the founder of Pulse HR, but can you tell our viewers that are tuning in this morning maybe a little bit about, I guess, how Pulse HR started and your journey into the Central West?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2012, my husband and I arrived in the area predominantly looking for a farm. It was between our families. Pete's based in Sydney and mine are out at Young, and it made a good dot on the map, really. Economically, lifestyle-wise, so many different facets. I probably don't need to go into all the great reasons about why the Central West is...
we can cut it into a promo video if you
I
like.
know. So pretty much Pulse HR became... it will come to life really because I was out of corporate HR. There wasn't lots of senior HR roles in the area back in the day. Had a good conversation at the time with Tim Berryman, and pretty much that was the birthing of Pulse HR. And I actually used LinkedIn, didn't really know a soul in the area, and wrote to most general managers in the area at the time within a couple of 100 kilometres of Orange and said, this is what I do. I'm here in the area looking for project work, and the rest is history, so they say.
How has LinkedIn and social media platforms changed how you operate as a HR business?
Oh, massive. Certainly from information and content and staying present from a business perspective. It's funny how, 8 years ago, I was that person reaching out, asking, could I catch up, introduce myself, learn about your business? And now 8 years on with, the wave of people looking to decentralise and live here in the Central West, that I'm getting those requests now. Could we catch up for coffee and meet and greet? And I think there's a real energy in that you can reach out to someone and connect on that platform, as well as being able to connect with job seekers and people that may be interested in moving to the area or time for their next career step, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think LinkedIn has a great role to play, that business to business connection.
Absolutely.
And it cuts through with a bit less fluff than Facebook and stuff like that's out there. In a normal period, I know COVID has probably changed the kind of operating practices for the region, but what are some of the normal HR challenges for the Central West and for local businesses that you interact with?
Yeah, look, certainly without doubt would be skill shortages and then job readiness of candidates. So I think there's a real, disconnect between availability of labour in, those either trade roles or very specific roles, and then you've got a whole group of people wanting to get their start in the market. And if you look generationally, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, there's been a decline in the roles that are really development roles. Businesses having that extra funds in the system to generate succession plans and growth roles, which then becomes the chicken or the egg. You don't end up with all your trades or your really the roles that need significant qualifications and time and investment. So we are in quite a conundrum, and I've got plenty of I guess opinion around really things that we could be influencing our ministers of parliament and things from the front line out here, because it is such the chicken or the egg. We need tradesmen and qualified people to be able to develop those ones coming up through the ranks, which is some of the things that are coming out of COVID now, like job trainer and the like, all good and well, but you can only have so many apprentices to the tradesmen that you've got.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point, and I think it's something we could probably talk about at length.
Absolutely.
I've still got a few more questions to go. But I guess, so that's kind of the normal, some of the challenges, but COVID has thrown up a lot of unforeseen barriers or things that businesses have had to work their way through. What have been some of the other HR considerations, I guess, that businesses have had to grapple with as a result of COVID?
COVID, I think, is an era in time that my entire 20 years of HR life led up to this point. I was really, look, the day or the weeks and that when it first hit, where things were moving so rapidly, like on a day-to-day basis or within, 24 hours, is that those considerations were literally, things were rolling ahead of any structured black and white information being available for business owners. And in a time of crisis, employees are looking to their leaders in the business, and those leaders didn't have the answers purely because things were moving, so fast, which we all get. I think, COVID also presented, a very big, opportunity in such a small window where people had to make some really significant decisions about their business or their risk profiles and the like, and being able to do that at such speed. I've never witnessed or experienced anything like that. Sure, I've been through recessions and changing periods within workforces and restructuring, etc., but the period and that where it came, and then the government after the fact continuing to roll out new measures that in hindsight within like a matter of 7 or 10 days would have changed the course of those decisions had we known that was in. But look, we're in an uncharted set of territories. So the key thing that I continue to harp on about is communication. Sit down and just be completely honest with what information is available, and it is actually okay in your businesses to say, I don't know, but I'm going to keep you updated and I'm going to seek out advice and assistance and that type of thing, because at least you are the captain of your ship, and that's what they're looking for, is calmness in a storm. So,
yeah, it's really good advice. I think what you've touched on there is probably good advice for all the managers tuning in today, this morning, is your staff are just looking for some direction and some advice and some guidance, and if you can be the frank and open with them,
absolutely.
I think that's vital. And I guess probably dovetails into the next question nicely. At the end of the last quarter, September 30, some of those stimulus measures were starting to wind back.
Yeah.
And I guess that probably is the next phase of COVID and for businesses. What advice have you got for businesses, or what considerations should they be thinking about as they start working through this next period?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't think you should be making decisions purely based on the government's giving us 50% rebate for a certain period of time, or racing off and these are short-term stimulus measures. I actually think my advice, to business owners out there is to try and get that breathing space to do some, strategic review of things. Have you got the right roles and the right structure, and review your workflows, looking at ways that you can streamline your cost of goods, all of those types of things, like back to a strategy on a page, or just reviewing about in the big picture, where are you headed, and eat the elephant with a teaspoon. I think it's
a good
probably
one. I might use that one later.
I don't think that it's actually a long-term sensible set of decisions to go, I can get an apprentice paid 50% of their wages for a period of time, because have you got the ability to then to support them for the whole 4 years, and have you got the tradesmen, and then where is the business heading? Where are you at this point in time? So, just taking the time to even get out of your own offices or workplace, go and find somewhere to think and digest and reflect on where we've come from over the last 6 months, and then how do those incentive measures work into and add advantage to whatever decisions you need to make, or to know that they are going to be used as a really clear opportunity and advantage, which is all perfectly a good choice, but don't make it purely based on, your job trainers or your short-term cash injections, because you're going to then need to have tricky conversations. Or
12 months, you're just kicking it down the road for 18 months. It's probably a really good advice, and probably in uncertain times like this, businesses are feeling under pressure and are facing challenges, and the last thing they think about doing is taking a step back and being strategic, but it's probably more important now than ever before. And I guess from your perspective, from a Pulse HR business perspective, you guys have been facing your own challenges like every business has, but what have you learnt about how your business operates, or how you operate personally as a leader during this challenging time?
Yeah, look, it's certainly been such a great period to reflect, and everything that I preach, to really put into action. I would absolutely suggest that, there is a large percentage of our business leaders out there that are suffering fatigue. They've been holding the line now for 6 months, and they honestly need to look after, to number one, the ship needs their captain, and it's going to need their captain for many months and years to come. So, not feeling overwhelmed and knowing that decisions need to be made and not putting them off is that, you probably do need to reach out and get, some people around you, whether it's booking that meeting, with an accountant or mentors. There's a lot of us that have great, networks and that type of thing, and it's actually okay to be vulnerable. Can we catch up for coffee? I've really got some big decisions, and to debrief with someone that you feel, comfortable with. We've got a huge amount of, just like anywhere in Australia, families that are running businesses. So you're dealing with being in the business during the day, and then, not getting any time to turn off, and everything that comes into that. At some point, there's got to be, time to turn off, but also booking time to go, what, I've got to leave the office for 2 hours today, and we're going to work on, working through some of those decisions and conversations, really.
Yeah, no, that's actually really good advice, and it's probably been amplified a little bit because people have been working from home, and especially
absolutely.
when you're a business, I think that's really good advice for those businesses that kind of family-run businesses. You live and breathe it.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about there. It's probably a nice way to start our Fast Five. It's where we change pace and change tack to learn a little bit more about our special guest, because you touched on mentors. And I've always subscribed to the view that you need to have 3 good mentors, someone once told me, because if you have 3 mentors from 3 different walks of life, you get kind of a well-balanced viewpoint. And it's probably my first Fast Five, best piece of advice you've had from a previous mentor.
Well, it's funny because I've actually already spoken about it, is something that really resonated with me probably around 14 years ago. I was actually on a leadership development program, Australian Rural Leaders, another plug.
With Matt Lineker.
Yeah.
No, I will put the link up actually for the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation. It is actually a cracker of a program.
Yeah.
It's run by Matt Lineker. He's the CEO there, but we'll put the link up after this morning's chat.
Yeah, it was a life-changing course for me, and I do actually remember, I'm obviously someone that's quite focused, quite driven, and there was a mentor in the Kimberley that his feedback to me was, you know what, your biggest issue is you actually just need to slow down and smell the roses. That you're so strategic or worrying about what's not meeting expectations, and, that push of performance within the team and that type of thing. He's like, it's actually perfectly okay, and it's actually really sensible to take time and smell the roses. And, that I hope that, just even reflection over a coffee with some business leaders or the like around the Central West is that, what has been achieved, or, there's been so many good positive things that if we do dig deep, we can find out of COVID. There's been some amazing stories of positive change as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've been trying to showcase a few of those over the last recent months through the Business Leaders Breakfast. Best local event or festival?
Oh, Food Week. Is there anything better? What a great way to showcase this region on so many levels.
Absolutely. 3 dream dinner guests. So if you could just have 3.
Really good question.
And maybe just we'll run through those. I might give you a couple too.
Well, I would like to say any boss mums out there, I think getting out and engaging when we're often so busy with juggling family and business. So anyone, any of the mums out there. But I actually think I was reflecting over this, and obviously, a lot of people will go to such and such celebrity or business inspiration. I'd actually like to sit down with the Eastern Seaboard premiers, all 3 of them. Like, let's get this sorted out, folks. So they're my 3 current dinner guests.
Well, I think that'd be an interesting conversation. Well and truly. Hidden gem of the Central West. So this could be a person, a place, an event, a venue, a location.
Oh, I struggled with this. There is so many. I'm fortunate to be able to visit and engage in the food and wine industry so much. But really, a really nice little plug from my family point of view is Pioneer Brewing.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. We will get to that one a little bit later.
So Gem of the West.
Yeah, nice little cross promo, like that. Boronor Caves for me, I've said it a couple of times before. I reckon it's one of those places that if you haven't been to, but if you've got visitors coming to Orange and the Central West, just down the road, check it out, and it's actually a nice little gem there. What are you currently reading, watching, or listening to?
Spend a large amount of my life keeping up to date on business type stuff and reading resumes. But I think one of the personal things that I've been really satisfied with out of COVID is getting time with my kids and not feeling that pressure to head out and do something, and actually really getting back to good, wholesome engagement of things back from my childhood. So watching my 7-year-old and I have just watched Anne with an E, and we've rebonded with Anne of Green Gables, and I felt very satisfied from connecting that history of my upbringing.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So look, you touched on usually read resumes and CVs, and that's probably a nice little way for me to just jump across to the next question. A lot of workers will probably be looking at those next phase of their career or opportunities for them going forward. But if there is a worker out here looking to make a move, what are some tips that you've got about making your CV, I guess, jump out from the crowd?
Yeah, look, I think the number one key goal with constructing a CV is making sure that you're actually answering more questions than you're creating for the person that's reading it. Because business owners are generally time poor, needing to really go and dig deep to understand, why is this person applying for this role? I don't understand the connection, or I don't understand, are they relocating to the area? Like, if you think about making sure that you've got a really strong cover letter or paragraph of intent of why you are applying for that job, so the person at the other end can really understand that you've taken the time and you're putting your best foot forward. Because other than that, you have about 10 seconds to get to that pile of maybes and then further shortlisting, etc. And if there is just unknown, and it's going to have to take emails and phone calls to say, I've got 5 questions that your CV is not answering, that's the goal that you need to start out with, is make sure that whoever's on the other end, you're answering as many questions as they could possibly have.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, especially in your cover letter. Make it just short and sharp and direct, and answering the questions that might be any job description or position description. I think that's really good advice. So I guess that kind of leads into the next part of the next phase in that process. You've put in your CV, you've done your cover letter, you're pretty happy with yourself. But sometimes the thing that gets most overwhelming for people is the interview. And so you've got the call from a business saying, come in tomorrow, we would like to interview you. What kind of tips have you got for potential workers that might have got to the interview and are feeling a little overwhelmed or anxious?
Yeah, I think just have really good intent. You need to be able to build trust. That's the key route, outcome for you to be successful, is that business owner can trust that you're going to come in and be able to complete the roles and responsibilities, and that you will also be good for the business from a team level, that it fits, that there's a win-win, so what you're looking for and the business is looking for. So I think it's just around being really concise with what you're looking for, what you can bring and add, and being able to talk through that. And if I would encourage people that there is a lot more employers out there that are hiring on attitude and that personal intent over the longest list of qualifications and history. And I think that's what's really important, is that you actually can jump forward in your career or potentially achieve roles that might not be your standard stepping stone. But if you can really convince that interviewee that you've got that fire in your belly, I think there's such a win on attitude.
I think that is very, very good advice. And I attended a business forum in Condobolin, of all places, last year or the year before, and they had Tom, I can't think of his last name, from Beechworth Bakery, and he started Beechworth Bakery, and he said, you employ for will, train for skill. Yeah. And I think that's really sound advice, that if people have appetite for it,
absolutely,
you can put the framework around them to support them on that journey. So I thought that was really good advice. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You touched on Pioneer Brewing just before,
Yeah.
and I know that's a business that Pete and yourself have started. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to Pioneer Brewing and what led you down this pathway for those that may not have known that was another one of the hats that you wear?
In the background. So we started Pioneer Brewing in late 2017. Pete was initially in the resources sector when we got to the Orange area, and as much as I'm encouraging everyone to go out and work on their strategy on a page, it was literally around, you need to figure out what you're going to do for the next 30 odd years and come home. We have small children, and hence out of that kind of conversation, I guess due diligence and investigation, I think it's about finding your passion. It's no different to starting a business to going for a job interview. You know, ultimately, if you've got that fire in your belly over something, you know, there's such a law of probability of success to start with that. So hence Pioneer Brewing was born.
What was the biggest challenge you faced setting up Pioneer Brewing?
Convincing financiers with no contracted forward sales to loan us a large amount of money. And, you know, I think there would be many business owners out there that if you put to bed your ideas every time you got a no, is that, you know, we would all not be progressing and you know, growing as an area. And I think that's the big thing, is just because you get a no doesn't mean that you don't take another route or avenue and convince the right people to support your idea. And look now, you know, we're 3 years in and growing quite substantially.
Yeah. One other quick question. You've focused or interacted with a lot of businesses through Pulse HR, but what did you learn about starting a small business that you hadn't thought about or didn't know about when you set up your own business?
Yeah, good question. I think that at times my reflection on our whole journey of starting up an advanced manufacturing business on farm in the middle of a drought is that at times, looking back, is that, you know, the best thing was if you had the framework and the structure. It can be paralysing if you're waiting for a perfect situation. You know, I think most entrepreneurs and business owners, you know, need to actually operate in a little bit of comfort that as long as you've done your due diligence as best as possible, a rough start is better than no start, and fine-tuning it, because I think there is so many opportunities to be missed by being in that, you know, paralysed state. So yeah, that would be my tip, is that it is actually making sure that you can fundamentally cope with that decision, but holding a level of risk to keep moving forward. Yeah,
look, you've led me to two comments. One was from Craig Murphy, who's the tech guy who has been a previous guest. He said at a forum that I spoke at a couple of weeks ago that if you're an entrepreneur, if you're 60% of the way there, it's better to launch it then and make the learnings as you go than try to wait and get your business idea or your concept 100% there, because you might miss your window. And that's kind of so true for business. And you've talked about, I guess, with Pioneer Brewing, how it's a paddock to can journey. From your experience, how is having that point of difference and a good business narrative, why is that important for a small business?
Look, I think there's such a movement by consumers wanting to know where their product's coming from, that provenance. So certainly for us, it was always about quality and control of that process. You know, Pete literally sows the grain in the ground, and then, you know, personal satisfaction of taking that whole process through, and then, you know, to come into venues in town or further afield and see your product being poured into glasses and enjoyed. You know, there's a real personal satisfaction, you know, in that, as much as it's our work and our chosen path and that kind of thing. And I think too that the other thing that you don't put a dollar value on these things, is the community engagement. You know, that interaction. You know, there has been such a downgrade of the village, you know, from just over, you know, the last 20 or 30 years and that type of thing, is that, you know, people want to buy into something that, you know, they feel passionate about themselves, and whether that's farming and agriculture or being in business and that type of thing, I think, you know, that's something that Pete and I really value and enjoy, is the people that we've met that are also looking for their tribe and their village, etc. And you know, that's sort of priceless, I think. And the Central West is just such a booming, you know, undercurrent of good energy. You know, I think that's just what's really exciting for this area. Like, we have not blossomed yet out here.
I feel like it's really going forward in leaps and bounds at the moment, and there's a trajectory, I think, for a lot of businesses, especially in that food and beverage manufacturing, I think has got a really positive future. And I guess that's a nice segue, and it's a nice way for a cross promo for RDA Central West, because it is business breakfast TV, and it's always full of cross promos. But we've got our Backing Business Forum on November the 20th here in Orange, and Tamara, you're going to be one of the keynote speakers, as is Pete, talking not only about Pulse HR and HR considerations, but Pioneer Brewing. Why is it important that as a community and as a region, we support the broader business community as we continue to work through this challenging period?
Oh, look, absolutely. Like, there is no rule book out there for what we're facing at the moment, and I think the opportunity to get together, you know, touches on a few things that I'm really passionate about. Is connectivity with people, you know, whether you have or haven't got a current mentor, and that is that we're all actually in this time together, and, you know, as a rising tide, all boats float. And so to come out and you know, get back together from a village or tribe perspective on the 15th of November, I think, you know, that's really powerful. And, you know, you never know what tidbits that you'll take away for the day, or what new connection that you have with someone in our business community. There's so many new people you know, coming and going, and that I just don't think that it would be very hard, I feel, that anyone to leave you know, the day without taking something away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about upskilling, I guess, the business community, and if they can get some good advice and make those connections, it'll be absolutely fantastic. So look, Tamara, thank you so much for your time this morning. We've covered some fantastic topics, and I hope that the viewers this morning and those listening in on the podcast have got some good tips that they can implement into their own business. But if viewers are wanting to engage, I guess, with Pioneer Brewing to learn more about the story there, or with Pulse HR, what's the easiest way they can do that?
Oh, absolutely. Jumping on the websites, you'll have all the information, socials, LinkedIn, any of those types of avenues, you'll find us.
Okay, well look, we'll put up the social media social media handles rather for Pulse HR and for Pioneer Brewing after this morning's chat. But Tamara, thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic to have you here as our guest this morning. But I hope everyone else has a fantastic day and a great weekend. Tune in same time next week when I sit down with the persuader Steve Simmons. But until then, have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. That was fantastic.